Good morning, afternoon, or whatever it is, wherever you are. This has been one of those lots of readings months. For me, a lot of kind of tough changes been going on. Maybe it's that way for you too. So I'm going to use the Aquarian Tarot. This is a very old deck. I think it's about 40 years old. Um, Excuse me. For some reason, suddenly got extra froggy up in here. Um, so today we're gonna do a 5 card spread and then show you how the answer oracle deck works in conjunction with the tarot. Or God, excuse the allergies. Swear I think I'm ready, and then start getting all this frog action going. My new divination page is up. So, if the terrible old woman vibe is one that you like, and just want a little help getting through something, my options are very affordable. I aim to keep them that way always, because so many things are not at all affordable, um, as we all know. All right. Um, Kind of some intentions that I'm having is to get away from that whole prosperity gospel thing that I learned early in life. And, this can apply to literal prosperity gospel, but also to just this belief that, this kind of get rich quick thing, that only by having large amounts of wealth can you be worth anything. Only by being considered a celebrity can you be worth anything. And these are all horrible message that I internalized at a very young age. To a degree, my father had internalized it, although he was never much about pursuing the whole celebrity thing. But boy, howdy, what did he ever want to be a millionaire, and felt that he was a failure because he wasn't. We're trying to get away from all that. We got a world in which we got a trillionaire who is one of the worst people ever. Um, so I don't know. I wish I had more money, but I sure as fuck wouldn't want to be Elon Musk. Um, all right. So we'll start our reading here. And this is the past influence and how it relates to what's going on now. The Empress. For me, trying to establish and believe in the worth and the strength of the feminine energy, even those systems, like mystical systems and stuff, and to a degree, certain religions will have regard for certain goddesses and such. In Catholicism, I was raised Catholic. Certainly, there is regard for Mary. But yet, real world women are treated like second-class citizens, are treated like trash a lot of the time. The fact that females menstruate, girls learn early on to be ashamed of something that's a natural process. I am not advocating going around, free bleedings, because simply blood is a biohazard. I was in the medical profession for enough years that I don't advocate that. I'm not certainly not saying your menstrual flow is disgusting, or if you have an incident, which I certainly had more than one of, given that I had endometriosis and fibroids and always bled very heavily. Um, Nobody should have to be ashamed of when something happens and you know, whatever you're using for hygiene protection doesn't quite cut the mustard. Nobody should have to be ashamed of that. It's not that. It's um, also, it would be desperately uncomfortable to be walking around without something to absorb. I, I don't know. There's certain things where it's like, let's not go all the way in the other direction, shall we? But anyway, no, the feminine, it's always kind of been like, and using insults like you throw like a girl or you run like a girl or something. Why? What's the sense of all that? Um, the if all women were to suddenly disappear, of course, if all men were to suddenly disappear, the race would also not continue. But instead of this, one is superior to the other, knock it off. That shit don't fly. Anyway, I have been trying to actually get in touch with the feminine strength. And part of that strength is knowing and trusting when you sense someone is behaving in a way that's just sketchy or not quite right. And yeah, trusting in yourself. So, the Empress, and in my particular case, is looking back on my relationship with my mother and the things that were difficult and challenging about that relationship. And there's something to trying to reparent my inner child because that fucker is so damaged. Um, and so scared, and that's why my nervous system is like always on fire. I am super hyper vigilant. I'm defensive. I have a great deal of difficulty connecting to people. I mean, I'm connecting to you all through this. I'm reaching out, offering what I can to help you in any way I can. Um, and so maybe the card is also calling on you to do the same thing because maybe your parents were anywhere from, flawed to totally fucked up, whatever part of the spectrum that they were on. And you gotta end up learning to trust yourself. And it can be hard to do when you've learned that yourself is the last person you can trust. But, that's why these resources there. Try to name a couple of those along the way. I'm a stubborn asshole who is not wearing my glasses. They're over in my um, bag, and I'm not going over to get them, so I'm, farsighted. I'm farsighted in my left eye and nearsighted in my right eye, and my eyes work fine together mostly. They separately, there's a little. Anyway, so we're going to now turn to the present situation right here, right now. You know that song. Um, if you're Gen X, you know that song. um, if you just like listening to music from all the eras, you probably know that song. Okay, so the Ace of Cups. Aces are always beginnings. Sometimes I feel like I'm always just like begin. Um, but aces are generally they're positive cards. Yes, trying to recall the energies for it. So kind of in a situation where things are actually improving. This is cups rather than pentacles, but they all kind of feed into each other a bit. I'm very obsessed in a way with my money situation because of the struggles I've had with compulsive spending, and I've got all this fucking debt that's, I assume responsibility for it. I'm the one who built it up. Yeah, but dealing with that and trying at the same time not to feel like this complete loser, I certainly do not believe in, I don't believe it's helpful to anyone to say something like, and this is gambling, which I actually don't have a specific problem with. I don't tend to gamble. Um, but there's this statement that gambling is a tax on stupidity. It is not a tax on stupidity. It is a tax on desperation. I swear to God, this thing is off. So I don't know if I don't want to use one of my stuffed animal buddies to prop it up. For the moment, I think I'll use the answer oracle until I'm ready to use it there. That's a little more on point. So fertility and new projects. I have a head full of ideas. What happens is when I start going to write those ideas, I start feeling like I can't do this. I'm not a good enough writer, so I'm having to fight with that. So for me, what I'm seeing is the energy is there. Um, it's being blocked by fear. So yeah, just looking at that, I've got to keep working on the fear. That's really about all there is to be done. Yeah, right. Hidden influences. So it's always something hidden. Three of Cups. Now, say friendship there looks like, connections, but in any triad, there's a chance that it can kind of go imbalanced. one way or the other. Um, that's something you have to watch out for. If you're in a situation where you're able to work with other people, overall, this is positive, but you might be having to look out for somebody who's kind of trying to skew things, in their own favor. And they might not even necessarily be wanting to screw you over as such, but they might be willing to kind of put down your abilities in order to build theirs up. So, kind of got to be watching for the wolf in the fold, as it were. Um, don't be out there like with the paranoid energy, but be on the lookout that somebody may not really have your best interests at heart. And if you're sensing that kind of somebody's always making backhanded compliments or something, that is a red flag. Don't ignore it. Yeah, so we're gonna step forward into the future. Advice and insight from the universe. Seven of Pentacles. Say card of hard work and industriousness. You gotta trust yourself. And I've always kind of felt that way, that I have to rely on myself. So, focus on the big picture rather than on the minutia. And, all right, so in creativity, that's kind of what I've been doing, is focusing on the big picture aspects. So, like, if you're stuck on, if you've been, for instance, writing a story, focus on the big picture. If you're creating a image, a painting, picture, what have you, focus on the big aspects, getting the big shapes down first before you focus on the detail. Um, so it's time to look at the big picture aspects of anything that you're dealing with. This is what's important right now. The details will come later. And I sometimes struggle with that. So, um, kind of the proposed outcome, if everything keeps going in the direction it's going, the star. The star is one of these, it's a beautiful, shining card. It follows after the tower. Um, so it's an illumination for the path ahead. And, however, the stars, except for the sun, I mean, it's a star, they shine in darkness. So the light you're getting from them may be very, it's dim and distant, and it's not really illuminating things here in space. But all right, you look up in the direction, you see a star that kind of catches your eye, follow downward, and, you know, may lead you to something. Um, be on the lookout for kind of little hidden gems. That's really the message of the star. Believe in wishing on stars, believe in your own magic. Do not follow this thing of, the kind of conventional wisdom back in the days. If you haven't gotten it in 3 days, there's a lot of things you're not going to be able to get in 3 days. But, in 3 days, you might see a sign that something's on move. I don't know. I kind of find that one to be a little bit hinky in a way to sell programs. All right, now I'm going to show you kind of how the answer deck works with this. The answer deck, what it does is it provides kind of a confirmation card for your reading, just something to sum the whole thing up. Um, Unfortunately, I've had to dial it back on, whenever I see a really nice deck, probably going to have to wait. I have a whole bunch of decks, and that was one thing I bought a lot of after my mother died. I'd see something. Be nice to have that or whatever. Let me get real with y'all. My son looked over my bank statement for, from last June to this June. My disability check, I get about $20,000 a year. My spending was $50,000 last year. A lot of that came from my inheritance. My inheritance is mostly gone. I have a serious problem. And, we're taught that when you got a serious problem, you need to be ashamed. It's hard not to be, but I look back on it. The addiction is partially, at least, a generational thing. My mother had the same thing, the spending addiction. Also the hoarding. She was a neat hoarder. Everything was boxed up. Her house was clean, neat order. She wasn't great at dusting, but many of us aren't. But it was in order. I'm not what you'd call a neat hoarder. I've got too much stuff. Thanks to my son's help, the actual, kind of pathological things aren't pathological and dirty. I am good at this point about being able to do dishes and laundry and stuff like that. I wasn't in the past. It got really, really, really bad. It's a serious mental health issue. It ends up, these fucking shows like Hoarders and that stuff. Here it comes. You don't go around exploiting serious mental health problems, you fucking piece of shit. I can't stand people who do shit like that. I cannot stand the producers of these shows. They are gross. They're disgusting. It is a serious problem, and there needs to be help and support. It's not laziness. There's a lot of different components. I'm not a psychologist. I can't say for sure what's going on in any individual person's situation. I don't have full-blown OCD, but I do have certain aspects that resemble it, resemble OCD, or I've got kind of a more mild case than some people do. I don't know how much is actual OCD and how much is connected to the ADHD. I don't know. Anyway, taking on serious health issues, mental health issues, in a society that expects everybody to just kind of act like a fucking Stepford wife. It's a challenge, and we're taught that we're losers if we don't live up to the expectations. I'm trying to refute that. Okay, so our answer card. Yikes. I've got to go mute something. Hold on a second. Okay, I guess I'm back. Dang. Okay, I'm watching the Dawdling Writer stream and her timer is this rubber ducky. Dang, being scared by a rubber duck. Okay. Anyway, the answer oracle. This is the card that kind of sums everything up. Empty. Answer oracle. Um, Clean, purify, empty practice. I'm trying to cleanse my psyche of all those fucking shitty things that I learned at an early age about worth. Um, and I don't know, it's kind of like physical therapy. You can't just, after a physical injury, you can't expect it to just heal up magically, but that's what we expect ourselves to do with mental health issues and trauma. It doesn't work. And if you do what I did and you push everything down under the surface and ignore it for decades, one of these days it's going to bubble back up like a volcano. It's going to burn you from the feet up. So, um, having to unlearn a lot of shit that it, and then there's the frustration of realizing that at my age, my time is a lot more limited. And I don't like have the patience for going back to school or any of that. I want to keep on moving. I might take courses for a certification here and there. I would like to finish the editing certification, although I don't really know when I'm going to be using it because I've kind of pulled back on that. I'd like to offer you that if you are, well, kind of wherever you are in life, but especially when you're younger, you've got opportunities. Don't allow other people to push you into areas that aren't actually going to hold your interests. Yes, you probably, there's probably nothing. It is a good idea to learn a trade. Um, because it's very hard to make a living from the arts, especially right away. It's something you have to build up to. That's why it's necessary to have a trade you can at least tolerate and hopefully that you like. Aim for something you're going to like. Aim for something that interests you. And yes, do learn a trade so you can pay your bills while you're working towards gaining renown in the arts, if that is indeed what one of your goals is. That's the best advice I can give you for right now. Um, I'm just trying to see that maybe I do have something to offer. And if you got something out of this, great. I'm glad. Um, for now, I bid you adieu. Um, I guess that it's full moon on Monday, so might be back for that, or maybe back it's a couple days late. That's often the case, but I'm exhausted. And step on forward and peace.